My name is Dennis Skaggs. Today's topic is gun control, facts, myths, and do they really work? I was raised in eastern Tennessee at a time when there were few, if any, so-called gun laws. There were no background checks, no waiting periods to purchase a gun of any kind. In my high school, during the fall, many students had loaded hunting rifles in their cars and trucks. That may be a shock to many of you. It was hunting season. We did not have a problem with students or anywhere in this country of taking loaded weapons into a school to kill other students or their teachers. Gun violence in the streets, carjackings, home invasions, assaults was less often than it is today, yet the ability to acquire a gun was much easier. I owned my first gun at the age of 5 and was taught how to care about and shoot with the weapon. I am a retired veteran of the United States Army, so I know firsthand what guns can do to another human and the loss of not only a life, but to a family. In today's society, few issues strike a opinion in Americans today more than the topic of gun control. With headlines ablaze with stories like April 20th, 1999, Littleton, Colorado, Columbine High School massacre. Eric Harris, Dylan Clabo, ages 18 and 17 respectively, killed 12 students, 1 teacher, and wounded 21 others. December 14th, 2012, Newtown, Connecticut, where Adam Lanza, age 20, killed 26 people and himself at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. He first killed his mother at their shared home before taking her guns and driving to the school. Lanza bought 4 guns with him. Nothing strikes the fear in the hearts of parents and angers among law-abiding citizens than stories like these. Now, there is even a greater cry in this country for gun control. Is gun control, tougher laws on ownership really the answer to these problems of violence which bothers even the law-abiding citizens and the responsibility of owning a weapon? Is it a cry for gun control based on facts that are proven that will work, or is it based on emotions steered by fear that want a solution to a problem of gun violence, even if it means surrendering some of your rights, the Second Amendment to our Constitution? If gun control is the solution, what has been the results in different areas of the United States where cities and states have implemented their own tougher restrictions? What about areas in the United States that encourage gun ownership? Is gun violence really a bigger problem there or a lesser problem? Many of you have asked this question over the years and still not come up with an answer. Facts and myths tend to get confused when issues have such a high emotional response to it. Many people believe that gun violence in our schools is new to this country, mainly since Littleton, Colorado. That is a myth, not a fact. The first massacre occurred in the school in the Pontiac Rebellion School massacre in July 26, 1764, 12 years before the United States became a country. There were 4 Lenape American Indians entered the schoolhouse and killed the schoolmaster, Enoch Brown, and killed 9 to 10 other children, according to Straight 2010. Since that first recorded incident, there have been more than 100 school shootings from the elementary schools to colleges in the United States. Those type of incidents have increased since 1990. The only purpose of a handgun is to kill people. Many people believe this to be facts, given the news media coverage in today's events. This is another myth in American society. Fact is that there are an estimated 65 to 70 million private owners of handguns in the United States that are used for hunting, target shooting, protection of families and businesses, and other legitimate and lawful purposes. By comparison, handguns were used in an estimated 13,200 homicides in 1982. That's less than 0.02%, 0.02% of handguns in America. Many of these reported homicides, 1,500 to 2,800, were actually self-defense or justified and therefore not criminal. That fact alone renders the myth about the only purpose of a handgun is absurd. For more than 99% of all handguns are used for non-criminal purposes, according to 10 Myths About Gun Control. Throughout the history of America, its citizens, a majority of which are law-abiding and have owned firearms to protect their families, themselves, along with recreational use in hunting, target practice, and other competition. Gun controls will lessen and eliminate gun violence in America. This is what many Americans believe as a fact. They believe that taking away a person's right to own a gun will get rid of the opportunity for gun violence to happen. This is another myth and has no factual basis to support it. In fact, cities with the toughest gun control laws ranked in the U.S. rankings or rank higher in the U.S. rankings in gun violence. Out of the top 7 cities in this order, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Cleveland, Oakland, and Detroit, they had the 7 toughest gun laws in this country in order for you to be able to obtain a gun. Of those 7 cities, 4, Chicago, Cleveland, Oakland, and Detroit, rank in the top 10 for gun violence. The facts really don't support it. Of the top 7 cities in the U.S. with the toughest gun control laws, 4 of them are in the top 9 cities with gun violence. And that's in accordance to Friedman in 2013. In fact, in the city of Kennesaw, Georgia, the city council back in 1982 passed a law that required every household within the city limits to own a gun. I lived in Kennesaw area when this was passed, and at that time Kennesaw had one of the highest crime rates involving armed robbery of any city in the state. Kennesaw is located in Cobb County, one of the largest parts of Atlanta metropolitan area. Since the passage of that law, there has been a decline in this kind of crime in Kennesaw. This despite the fact that Kennesaw was only about 3,500 in population at that time, and is now well over 100,000 in population with an average income median above the national average. People all over the country said that there would be shootings in the streets, violence in the homes. Kennesaw Historical Society President Robert Jones said, following the law's passage, the crime rate dropped 89% in the city, compared to a modest 10% drop statewide. This is according to Butch and Hamilton in 2001. Gun control supporters cite Washington, D.C. as justification where gun laws are working. Yet crime in Washington was raised dramatically since 1976, a year before the handgun ban took effect. Washington, D.C. now has an outrageously higher crime rate than any state in 1992. Violence crime rate was 2,832.8 per 100,000 residents compared to the rest of the U.S. that was 757.5, with a homicide rate 8 times the national average. In 1992, it was 75.4 per 100,000 compared to 9.3 nationally. No wonder former D.C. Police Chief Maurice Turner said, "What has the gun control laws done to keep criminals from getting guns? Absolutely nothing. City residents ought to have the opportunity to have a handgun." From the 10 Myths About Gun Control. In D.C., for the first 4 years following the strictest gun controls, there was 293,653 cases of violent crime, murder, rape, assault, and burglary. In the 4 years following the Supreme Court's ruling that these laws were unconstitutional and turning them over, there was 159,742. There was a drop of 46.6% in gun violent crimes once gun controls were removed from the books. and this is in accordance to the public arrest records for the cause of a problem. If guns were easier to obtain prior to the 80s, and guns are still basically the same outside of their ability to fire more rounds at a quicker rate, then what is the cause in this rise of gun violence in America? A couple of other things have changed in America besides the rise of gun violence. In 1962, the Supreme Court ruled that reading the Bible and prayer in our public schools was illegal. The moral teachings from the Bible were taken away from our children in schools. In July 1946, Dr. Spock published a book called The Common Book of Baby and Child Care. In the book, Dr. Spock wrote, "Physical punishment certainly plays a role in our acceptance of violence. If we are to ever turn towards a kindlier society and a safer world, a revulsion against physical punishment of children would be a good place to start." Page 173. Now, most school systems have rules against corporal punishment, according to Dr. Benjamin Spock, The Child Care Controversy, in 2011. The media in this country has become so violent in what they show, and the violence has become so acceptable part of our society. Over the past 20 to 25 years, video gaming industry's highest selling games involve some type of gun violence, in which the user can keep killing the same people over and over each time they play a game. There is no consequences, only reward. So in the past 50 years or so, gun violence has increased, even though the ability to acquire a gun has become tougher. At the same time, we have allowed our court systems to control our morals. We are allowed to teach and the ways that we can or cannot discipline our children. Violence in our news, TV shows, movies, video games has become so accepted, and Americans now want more. The facts are staring us straight in the face. Our mental conditioning has been shaped in such a way that a generation of children that are becoming teens and young adults today only know violence as being acceptable and the weakening of the discipline required for this type of consequences. Many children are now being raised without fathers in their homes, and many more without any formal knowledge of the Bible and its teachings concerning right and wrong. Since 1960 through 2010, there has been a 23.5 in violence, 61.67 murders, 20.8% forcible rape, 29.22% robbery, 19.7% aggravated assault, 42.06% burglary, and 38.88% in total violent crime increase. Gun violence in America is a major issue. When I was a child, there were the three safest places were home, church, and school. Today's news inform us that none of these places are nearly as safe as they used to be. It is past time that a solution to this issue of gun violence to happen, and even legal gun owners want this to happen. Taking away the Second Amendment of the Constitution would be a very dangerous and a slippery slope approach to the problem, and probably would not correct the solution. Once the federal government starts tearing down the Constitution under the guise of it's for the better, what will stop them from removing other rights that you might not want to give up? In the 1960s and 70s, it was much easier to obtain a gun legally, and there was not nearly the level of gun violence that there is today. Guns themselves haven't changed. Load, aim, and shoot. Maybe the solution to this issue is not to make it even harder to obtain a gun. Maybe it is an attitude, a mental or moral crisis in this country that is causing the rise in gun violence. Thank you.
Can you push start now?
Only if you want to stay here another